Millions of years before humans ever walked the earth. Before we gave Tyrannosaurus rex the crown of the ultimate predator, there was something else. A reptilian nightmare that made T-Rex look like an amateur. Longer, deadlier, faster in the water. And unlike T-Rex, who ruled the land, this beast ruled two worlds. Scientists used to think the oceans were T-Rex's refuge, that if it got tired, it could cool off near the shore. Big mistake, because lurking just beyond the beach was a creature so powerful, so efficient, that if a T-Rex ever wandered too close, it wouldn't just get attacked, it would get ripped apart alive. And the craziest part? We only recently discovered what this thing really was, because it didn't just hunt dinosaurs, it ate them.
If you were to drop into the late Cretaceous, say around 70 million years ago, you'd land in what looked like a tropical paradise. Swamps, forests, inland seas the size of countries, and roaming across the shoreline was the most famous killer in prehistoric history, Tyrannosaurus rex. At nearly 40 feet long and weighing up to 9 tons, T-Rex was the undisputed apex predator of North America. It could bite through bone, crush cars if it lived today, and was powerful enough to tear other dinosaurs in half. But here's the thing about apex predators. They only stay at the top as long as they control their territory. And while T-Rex dominated the land wasn't everything. Because slicing across the waves, just offshore, was a creature built like a torpedo, with jaws like a bear trap. The Mosasaur. Now, technically, Mosasaur refers to a whole group of marine reptiles, but we're not talking about the little guys. We're talking about the monsters. Tylosaurus, Prognathodon, Mosasaurus hoffmanni, some reaching up to 56 feet long. That's longer than a bus, longer than T-Rex. And unlike the T-Rex, the Mosasaur didn't lumber, it launched. Sleek, serpentine, and armed with double-hinged jaws lined with backward-curving teeth, Mosasaurs were built to grab, twist, and swallow prey whole. And their prey? It wasn't just fish. It was anything dumb enough to get close to the shoreline. That included baby hadrosaurs, triceratops, smaller carnivores, and yes, even Tyrannosaurus if they strayed too far. Because fossil evidence now suggests that some species of T-Rex and its relatives hunted dangerously close to the water. And the Mosasaurs? They didn't care if their next meal was 3 tons of armored meat. If it bled, it fed. And that meant the so-called king of the dinosaurs was on someone else's menu. Imagine a Komodo dragon. Now stretch it out to the size of a double-decker bus, replace its feet with flippers, give it a 6-foot skull full of recurved teeth, and double that bite with a second set of jaws in its throat. Then put it in the warm, shallow seas of prehistoric North America and make it insanely fast. That's a mosasaur. Specifically, let's talk about Tylosaurus proriger, the apex of the apex. This beast was up to 45 feet long, with an elongated snout perfect for ramming prey, and a body like a biological missile. And unlike crocodiles or sharks, it didn't rely on stealth alone. Tylosaurus could accelerate, chase, and overpower creatures its own size, sometimes bigger. These weren't slow giants, these were warm-blooded monsters with incredibly fast metabolisms, burning calories and devouring everything to keep going. Fossilized stomach contents have confirmed their menu. Fish, squid, other marine reptiles, seabirds, and, drumroll, small to mid-sized dinosaurs. Let that sink in. Dinosaurs near the coast, dead or alive, were prey items. Juvenile hadrosaurs, hatchling ceratopsians, scavenged carcasses of larger theropods, and maybe even subadult tyrannosaurs that wandered too close. One mosasaur fossil was found with undigested dinosaur bones still inside it. Another was buried mid-meal, its skeleton curled around the broken remains of a bird-like dino it had clearly tried to swallow whole. And they weren't picky. If it moved, it was food. If it floated, it was food. And if it was bleeding into the water, that was basically a dinner bell. Unlike T-Rex, who had arms the size of chicken wings, Mosasaurs were liquid power, snapping sideways like missiles and dragging prey into the depths. So when people ask, could a T-Rex survive in the ocean? The answer is hell no. Not with these lurking offshore. Tyrannosaurs were terrifying. But they had one massive blind spot. They weren't built for water. And that's exactly where the real killers waited. The prehistoric oceans of the Cretaceous weren't peaceful coral wonderlands. They were ambush zones. Warm, shallow waters, murky visibility. Coastal drop-offs where land met sea like a trapdoor. And lurking beneath the surface, just out of sight, were mosasaurs. Still, silent, waiting. And then, boom! In one explosive lunge, the mosasaur would rise from below with its mouth wide open, jaws ready to clamp down on anything unfortunate enough to dip its toes too deep. If a hadrosaur tried to wade into the water for a drink, gone. If a predator chased prey to the water's edge, gone. And if a young tyrannosaur got curious or hungry enough to scavenge a beached carcass near the shore, gone. Dragged under, torn apart. And it wasn't just brute force. Mosasaurs were equipped with a secret weapon, pterygoid teeth. These were backward-facing fangs lining a second set of jaws, deep in the throat. So once prey was grabbed, even if it thrashed or fought back, it wasn't going anywhere. The pterygoid jaws pulled the victim deeper into the throat, inch by inch like a conveyor belt of death. Think xenomorph from Alien, but real, and underwater. One fossil site in Kansas revealed the remains of multiple land animals, all found in marine sediment, all chewed to bits. Scientists now believe this wasn't a coincidence. It was a kill zone, a spot where marine predators like mosasaurs routinely dragged land animals into the sea and feasted. And as terrifying as that is, we're only just starting to understand the full menu these creatures had access to. T-Rex may have ruled the land, but get too close to the water, and it was just another snack. For a long time, scientists thought mosasaurs stuck to fish and other sea creatures. After all, most fossils found inside their bellies were marine-based. But then, the bones started showing up. Not just any bones, land-dweller bones. Dinosaurs. Found inside marine predators buried hundreds of miles from shore. In one jaw-dropping discovery, paleontologists in North America unearthed a mosasaur fossil with dinosaur remains in its gut. Specifically, fragments of a young hadrosaur, a duck-billed herbivore that couldn't swim and had no business being in open water. There were no signs of decay, which meant this wasn't a washed-up carcass floating out to sea. It was a fresh kill. Another fossil was found with bits of avian dinosaur, possibly a proto-bird, lodged between ribs and vertebrae. And in yet another case, paleontologists found a Tylosaurus fossil surrounded by scattered bones from multiple prey animals, like the mosasaur had died mid-feast. Jaw fragments, limb bones, even partial vertebrae, all crushed and etched with acid marks. That last part is key. The acid marks prove one thing: digestion. These weren't leftovers. These were victims that had been swallowed and partially dissolved inside the monster. And it doesn't stop there. In fossil sites from Europe, Africa, and the Americas, scientists are now discovering more and more dinosaur bones in marine deposits, often broken, scattered, or gnawed in ways that suggest a terrifying possibility. Mosasaurs didn't just scavenge, they hunted. And what they hunted didn't always have fins. Even tyrannosaurs weren't safe, especially their smaller cousins and juveniles who stayed close to the waterline. In a world where predators ruled by size, stealth, and speed, the mosasaur added one more deadly advantage: access. They could reach places land predators couldn't, and they could drag prey to places no one ever came back from. For nearly 25 million years, the mosasaur reigned over the seas, and for just a fraction of that time, Tyrannosaurus rex rose as the undisputed king of the land.
Two titans, two monsters, ruling separate worlds, but both marked for death. Because 66 million years ago, the sky split open. A rock the size of a city slammed into what's now the Yucatan Peninsula at 20 times the speed of sound. Shockwaves rippled across the planet, mega tsunamis, firestorms, acid rain, and finally, silence. 80% of Earth's species were gone. But here's the twist. Not everyone died instantly. Some perished in days, some in weeks. Others held on for months, even years, in a poisoned world where the sun no longer rose and the food chain fell like dominoes. So who died first? Fossil evidence suggests the oceans may have collapsed faster. Plankton, the base of the marine food web, were among the first to disappear. And when plankton died, so did the fish. When fish died, the mosasaurs starved. They may have outswam the firestorms, but they couldn't outlast the famine. On land, T-Rex faced a slower doom. The forests thinned, prey vanished. The very same predator who could crush bone with one bite likely died emaciated, weakened, searching for meat that no longer existed. Two apex predators, gone. Not in some epic duel, not in some bloody final clash, but in parallel silence. One beneath black oceans, the other beneath a sunless sky. And yet, the mosasaur may have lasted just a little bit longer. Why? Because the ocean holds heat, because water shelters, because while the land burned, some mosasaurs may have been the last giants still hunting, until even they, finally, vanished. Today we remember T-Rex as the king, but maybe that's only because the true monster that ate it didn't leave behind as many bones.